One of the most used and abused phrases in our political lexicon was coined by you. I don't know how many people know Lutyens Delhi, the idea
Yeah.
of Lutyens Delhi. Uh, what does it actually mean to you?
Well, at that point that it was going, I grew up in Lutyens, Delhi. You know that my grandfather was one of the contractors who built Lutyens, Delhi. So when the whole conversation began about Modi coming to Delhi, I actually wrote a piece in my column saying that the people living inside Lutyens, Delhi were shaking with fear at the thought of him coming because he was a total outsider. He was the kind of person that they couldn't co-opt to this very cozy little space where the rulers of India lived like princes. And, the world didn't know about it. And so he sent for me Modi to Ahmedabad. And he was delighted with the piece. So, I got a call the next day saying, Narendra Modi wants to see you. So, I was quite pleased. And that's how it began. But, it's now acquired a totally different thing. Lutyens Delhi is occupied by him and his men.
So it's a new Lutyens?
Absolutely. It's the old lot, poor things, are, not in Lutyens Delhi anymore. And also, I always objected to the fact that that it should be government housing in the most expensive part of Delhi, and it's a very bad example to set for the rest of the country, because even when you travel, you see that in a small town, the only street that is clean and has trees, etc., will be where the collector, the police chief, and where the high officials live. So I really, I object to that kind of thing. We shouldn't be paying for our officials, our MPs, to live like kings when they can't provide housing to ordinary people.
Are you Lutyens Delhi, new or old?
I am old Lutyens Delhi, and I have a little property in Lutyens Delhi because my mother inherited it. But I don't like Lutyens Delhi as it is now.
But it's a metaphor. It's not just a physical
Yeah.
or a geographical description. And the metaphor was of an old elite, challenged by a new elite. Do you see yourself as part of, certainly you were part of the old elite. Do you see yourself as part of the new elite?
No, it's completely closed to me, the new elite. I don't have any access at all.
Why did that happen, you think?
I think that when I was a big Modi Bhakt. I really believed that he.
Why did you admire him in the way that you did, and what changed for you?
I wrote against him when the Gujarat riots happened, but I felt that he had been treated unfairly because what happened in Gujarat had happened 1,000 times over in secular times by secular parties. For me, one of the worst incidents, other than the six, which I actually was witness to, was the Hashimpura incident. And all of these things, in that, what happened, the what is it called, the PAC?
And it was on the watch of the PSC that all of this happened.
No,
I mean,
the
police.
PSC
The police led it.
It was I don't know what
The
it's called.
provincial armed
or
constabulary.
whatever.
Yes.
They arrested Muslims in Meerut, in the Hashimpura area, put them, and the youngest was 13 years old, the oldest was 70, put these men into a van and shot into the van. And, I couldn't believe that such a thing could happen in India. If a couple of them hadn't survived, because they threw the bodies into the canal of that, the Ganga Canal goes by, and one or two of them survived and ended up in the medical institute. And I actually met them and heard about this incident. I mean, it was like a Nazi-style shooting. And who was Prime Minister? Rajiv Gandhi. Who was Prime Minister when the Sikhs were massacred in Delhi? Rajiv Gandhi justified it. So I felt that a lot of people, including maybe you, were unfair to him.
In what way?
Well, you made it sound as though it was the first time that this had happened since 1947, and it certainly wasn't.
Do you think, looking back, that impression that people took away was because it was the first time a riot had actually been chronicled on television?
Yeah. It was the first.
Because I don't think anyone set out or, to do anything but to report the story. I was certainly, a young reporter in my 20s, just telling the story that I was assigned to report. But it was the first time. I don't know what impression 1984 would have been created had it been captured on TV news.
I agree with you. But there was almost no reportage of 1984 in the print media. You had to actually get people to allow you to do a story on what happened to the Sikhs. I remember a year later going to Tilak Nagar, where the widows were, and they were openly cursing Rajiv Gandhi and wishing him, doom and death and things like that, because they hadn't been helped at all. And nobody was prepared to listen to their stories. Now, I admit that there wasn't television, but there was journalism. There were journalists who did not report that story.
What is the image that stays with you from 1984?
I remember for a start that, I was writing for the Sunday Times London. And they, of course, thought that Punjab was going to erupt. And so they sent me off to Amritsar. She was killed on the 31st of October. On the 1st, they sent me off. And I had to leave Atish, who was, I think, 3 or 4 years old. And, I spoke to my mother and I said, can you come and stay with him? Because he's alone. I was in a little Barsati and golf links at that point. And she said, nothing's going to happen. You don't understand India, it never happens like that, etc. I then come back from Amritsar that evening, and the image has stayed with me because my grandmother faced the same thing in Lahore when they had to flee. And I smelt burning, it wasn't like burning flesh, but burning as I came out of the airport. And there was this smoke coming in from the rest of Delhi, and I couldn't find a taxi. I couldn't go in. And at that point, I used to wear a khanda, a gold khanda. And, I was that's identifiably a Sikh. And so I somehow managed to persuade South Indian gentleman to give me a lift to Rafi Marg, where the office of the telegraph was, or, wherever. And on the way outside the Ashoka Hotel, we saw the first burnt bodies in the street. Then we saw taxis with, dead men, on the thing. And I couldn't believe that this was in the center of Delhi and there were bodies in the streets.
Yeah. That
I've never been able to forget. I sometimes have nightmares of that. And then we went the next day after that. On the 3rd, Rajat Sharma and I went to Tirlokpuri, and we saw what we thought was just garbage burning, and they were bodies. And he remembers a foot, and I remember an arm, of somebody with a ring on it, or the other way around, I can't remember. But,
I think you wrote it was an arm with a ring on it.
Yeah.
A hand stretched out with a ring on it.
And he remembers the foot. And, we were in shock, I have to tell you. Those are the images that stay with me.
So let's start with Rajiv Gandhi, on whose watch this happens. You liked Rajiv Gandhi. You were friendly with his wife, Sonia. You write about this friendship and how it went sour in your book, Darbar. When you liked Sonia, in the days that you were their friend, what did you like about her?
She was very generous and very warm. And if she gave you her friendship, she really gave it. She was very, very generous with Atish.
She sent your son clothes.
Oh, yeah, she would bring them from Italy and pretend that they were for Menika's son and say, oh, no, he's too big because then he's a year older than Atish. So she's a very generous woman. And, I must tell you this, that I admire very much that she became the most important politician in India. She couldn't speak Hindi when Rajiv was killed. She had no idea who was in the Congress party. She had no idea of how to conduct an election. Nothing. And look where she got. I mean, she became and remains actually one of the 10 most powerful politicians in India. So I admire her. So, I mean, I have no hostility to her.
Then
She
who do you
has.
have the hostility to?
I don't have any hostility, Barkha. I'm a journalist. I report what I see. I have no.
Yeah.
She dropped me because I did a profile of her in India Today, and I've written that story very often. Where Arun Puri said to me, he said, I don't mind being considered a chamcha of Rajiv Gandhi, but I'm not going to be considered a chamcha of Sonia, because she actually gave me all the information that we needed as an interview on the telephone, and agreed with. But
So she knew you were doing the story on her.
it was done with her permission. She didn't give a full interview because Manishankar Iyer advised against it. But she actually, on a personal level, gave me the interview, telling me what she did in her spare time. That's what Arun Puri said. We want to do a profile of her because we don't even know what she sounds like. And she's everywhere with the Prime Minister. And, we don't know what she does in her spare time. We don't know the kind of music she likes. So go and ask her. So it was all of that stuff. But Dilip Bob was put on the job with me. And to make it sound like I wasn't really being a chamchi, I put in one line saying you can either be Lalita Shastri or Raisa Gorbachev. And that was one line that she objected to. The other line that she objected to I said her friends using her name. And they were, in every drawing room in Delhi, there was the Quattrokis saying, what can we do for you? How could we help you? And it wasn't just them.
And for a generation that's too young to know who the Kotrokis are, they're the family that then eventually gets linked to the Bofors scandal.
Exactly.
Yes.
The money from the Bofors bribes was found in their personal accounts. Now, why would an armaments company bribe a fertilizer salesman unless he could really help them swing that deal, right? She's never actually they've never traced the money to her because maybe she didn't actually get it, maybe other people did. But, in any case, she objected to those two things. And then when I write about this, when she, I tried to see her, I said, I'll come and tell you the names. And she, after that, she never, all access was dropped.
How did you feel about that?
I felt very bad about losing, because I liked Rajiv to the end. And then Louise and Salman Khurshid said, you've got to try and resolve this with Rajiv. And so they were living opposite 10 Janpaths in a house, and it was Eid or it was Ramzan, and there was Iftar, and Rajiv was coming. So this was just like maybe 2 weeks before he was killed. And I said to him, Rajiv, what is the problem? I'm criticizing the Prime Minister of India or, Rajiv, the politician. What's that got to do with personal things? He said, I have no personal problems. So I said, so can I come to interview in Amethi then? He said, please do. And so I went there, and again, she tried to stop it. She was at the airport, I arrived with a television crew, and she said, she was cold as ice, and I don't know how I managed to get the interview finally, but I did, and that was the last time I saw him.
What do you think there's, from your time that you knew both of them well, what is the one thing about the Gandhi family that you think people don't know, but you got a chance to observe?
Well, I didn't know Indira Gandhi.
I mean Rajiv Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi.
I think that there's a decency in their personal dealings with humans, with
with others,
even with their dogs. There's a decency underneath the. Certainly, Rajiv was a very decent human being. I think that he was a terrible politician, and I think actually Sonia has been a more successful politician. So I think that really the decency is what people don't often see. But, I don't know the children, so I don't know whether they have it.
When people say, and they often say, Tavleen, you're obsessed with Sonia. You've heard that. There's something personal there's something visceral there. You're obsessed with her. And I think you at one point said that she has been, in a way, in the UPA years, a de facto prime minister.
She was. There's no question about that. There was no question at all about that. Now they say that I'm obsessed with Narendra Modi. I met somebody the other day who said, your column is just garbage because all you're doing is attacking Modi, and Modi has done so much for India. So, it goes with the territory. I actually try to be as honest as I can about what I'm writing or, what I'm saying. And, I feel quite disappointed that people think it's personal.
There's a photograph of you presenting one of your books to Prime Minister Modi. And clearly at that time, you are still, I'm not saying that you only present books to people you admire. In public life, as a journalist, we meet all people from all walks of life. But you clearly did on record admire him. You were a
Absolutely.
Modi fan.
Yes. I still am, actually.
You are still a Modi fan?
Yes. I believe that he has done a great deal for India in the past 9 years. I don't like some of the things that he's done, but in general, I see when I travel villages that now have toilets in their homes, in village homes. I see roads in villages. I see women who, in the deserts of Rajasthan, you will find women with gas cylinders. So he's done a lot for India in that way. Look at the infrastructure that's being built. I've never seen this scale of improvement. So I admire all that, but I don't admire the divisions he's created in India, and I find them very dangerous. So,
what was the turning point for you when you moved from being an admirer to being what is the how would you describe your
I think the killing of akhlaq started it. I think that was 2016.
Yeah.
Just before demonetization, I began to think, my goodness, he doesn't understand economics at all. But politically, when that happened, after it happened, like maybe a few days later, and I was in with the whole RSS lot, and I went and saw a very senior RSS leader. And I said, why don't you say something? I said, "Aap kuch bolo, kuch kaho ki ye galat hua hai." He said, "Bhai, Hindu kam se kam marna seekh gaye hain." And, I was quite taken aback. And I actually recounted this to other BJP people. And I said, this is wrong. You cannot support this kind of thing. So that actually began the disenchantment, because I actually don't want to see India divided again. My family is a victim of partition. I don't think that it's right to believe that it's possible to have any kind of final solution for the Muslim question, because there are too many Muslims and they didn't come from anywhere else. They're Indians. And so that is what is worrying me the most.
Have you met with the Prime Minister after you began criticizing him? When was the last time you met him?
The last time I met him was on Independence Day, August 15th. They have that little ceremony that
in Rashtrapati Bhavan or
in Rashtrapati Bhavan, but in that annex in Rashtrapati Bhavan. And so, we were all standing in line. There was me and Kumi Kapoor and a few other people, and, with other journalists. And he was very, charming to Kumi and virtually ignored me. And then immediately after that, there was an India Today conclave where Kali had a little separate, Kali Puri had a photo session. There was Boris Johnson there as well. And they put Ajit and me in that photo. And again, he said to Ajit very charmingly, "Kaise ho Ajit bhai?" Ignored me as if I wasn't there.
And did you say anything?
Well, I did. Namaste. What is there to say? I mean, you can't drop the Prime Minister of India. He has to drop you.
And you've been dropped?
I've been dropped twice.
By Sonia Gandhi and Narendra Modi.
Yeah.
Do you wear that as a badge of honor, or do you feel a bit bad about both of it?
Well,
both of them.
I really think that people in India do not understand the role that journalists play.
Yeah.
Now, for the journalism that I have understood is that our relationship with the government has to be adversarial. we're not meant to be cheerleaders. And, it's very worrying that most of the media at the moment have turned into cheerleaders.
Yeah.
So, all I was doing was my job in both cases, and I got chucked.